हेलो एवरीवन, ये हमारा दूसरा वीडियो है और इसमें हम रिकॉर्ड करने वाले हैं रोमांटिक एज के मेजर नॉवेलिस्ट लॉरेंस स्टर्न, टोबियस मॉलेट, हेनरी फील्डिंग एंड सैमुअल रिचर्डसन. These four writers are called the four wheels of English novels by Samuel Johnson. Walter Scott, 1771 to 1832, known as the father of historical novels because in all his writings he deals with historical elements. His novels are also known as Waverley novels because he has written a famous novel with the name Waverley in 1814. Moreover, he has the imaginary place Waverley as the setting of his many other novels. He was a poet first. He has written Minstrelsy of the Scottish Border 1802 to 1803, collection of ballad. The Lay of the Last Minstrel 1805, The Lady of the Lake 1810. But after failing as a poet, he started working on novels. It troubled Jane Austen, and she got so troubled that she wrote a letter to her sister talking about Walter Scott's change and said, "What hatred he has against us! Why doesn't he want us to earn?" Jane Austen came from a very rural family and her only way of earning was writing novels. But Walter Scott's standard as a novelist is not up to the mark. Some of his important novels are Waverley 1814, The Antiquary 1816, The Black Dwarf, and Old Morality in 1816, Rob Roy in 1817, The Heart of Midlothian 1818, The Bride of Lammermoor 1819, and Ivanhoe in 1820. In Ivanhoe, it has a famous character Robin Hood, initially under the name of Locksley. The Bride of Lammermoor is based on a real story where a girl was forced to marry someone by her family, and when they got married on the wedding night, her husband was found dead. The girl escaped the room and nobody knew what happened exactly. All we know is that this became the talk of the city at that time, and Walter Scott took it as a subject of his story. In 1823, he founded the Bannatyne Club for the publication of the old Scottish papers. Second writer, Maria Edgeworth, from 1768 to 1849, known as the first writer of regional novel. We talk about some particular setting. Her most famous works are Practical Education, 1798, a study written in collaboration with her father, Richard Lowell Edgeworth. It is a progressive work on education that combines the ideas of John Locke and Rousseau with scientific inquiry. Second work, Castle Recurrent in 1800. It is viewed as the first regional novel in English language. It is also considered the first Anglo-Irish novel. Her third work, Belinda, in 1801. It is notable for its controversial depiction of interracial marriage between a black servant and an English farm girl. Later editions of the novel, however, removed these scenes. Her last years were spent working for the relief of the famine-stricken Irish peasant during the Irish potato famine from 1845 to 1849. Third writer, Famny or Frances Burney, 1752 to 1840. She, at the age of 16, started to keep a diary which was addressed as Miss Nobody. Her diary recorded personal and public events. She was a member of Blue Stocking Group and very close to Samuel Johnson. He would call her "my little Fanny." A Blue Stocking is a 18th century educated women group, so the learned women with interest in educational discussions attend it as well as invited male guests. She wrote novels dealing with family issues, domestic love, domestic love stories, and imaginary characters. She was also known as the founder of Tea Table School of Fiction. Some of the important works are Evelina. It is subtitled History of a Young Lady's Entrance into the World, published 1778. It is an epistolary novel. Second, Cecilia or Memoirs of an Heiress, 1782. It belongs to the genre of novel of manners. Third, Camilla or A Picture of a Youth, 1796. It deals with the matrimonial concerns of a youth group of young people. The Wanderer or Female Difficulties in 1814. It focuses on the difficulties faced by the women as they strive for economic and social independence. It's a historical novel with Gothic overtones. The fourth important writer, Jane Austen, 1775 to 1817, one of the most romantic novelists, known for landed gentry novels. They were the novels dealing with the life of rich class, those who are farmers, landlords, and were far away from the city life. She dealt with love in a different psychological condition. For Jane Austen, marriage and social status is the first priority and love is the secondary. She primarily known for her six major novels. First work, Sense and Sensibility, in 1811. It was based on two major characters, Eleanor, who represents sense, and Marianne, who represents sensibility. Story of three Dashwood sisters and brother John Dashwood. He became the owner of the property, and three sisters belonged to the second mother. So the three Dashwood sisters and their widowed mother are forced to leave the family. John Willoughby falls in love with Marianne, but Colonel Brandon also feels that he is in love with her. Eleanor married Edward Ferrars. Second work, Pride and Prejudice, in 1813, originally titled First Impression. Story of Mr. and Mrs. Bennet and their five daughters, Jane, Elizabeth, Mary, Kitty, and Lydia. In the very opening scene, Mrs. Bennet is scolding her husband and says, "It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in a possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife." She is telling her husband that we have a new person in the neighborhood named Mr. Bingley. He's a very rich guy. You must go and meet him because we have five daughters. Mr. Bennet is not ready to go. Mrs. Bennet is a lady with worldly wisdom and concerned about the marriage of her five daughters. The novel follows the character development of Elizabeth Bennet, the protagonist of the book, who learns about the consequences of hasty judgment and comes to appreciate the difference between superficial goodness and actual goodness. Jane Bennet gets involved with Mr. Bingley, and he has a friend, Mr. Darcy, who finds Elizabeth Bennet attractive as well as egoistic. After some ego clash, Darcy got married to Elizabeth. The third work, Mansfield Park, in 1814, story of Fanny Prince, who is sent to live with the family of Sir Thomas and Lady Bertram at Mansfield Park. The three sisters represents three different standards of financial condition. Lady Bertram, who is the middle of the three sisters, she represents upper class. Mrs. Morris, the elder sister of Lady Bertram, represents middle class, and Mrs. Price, the Fanny's mother, represents poor class. Emma, 1815. Austen herself said that I am going to take a heroine whom no one but myself will much like. In the opening line, Emma is introduced as Emma Woodhouse, handsome, clever, and rich. Emma thinks that she is good at matchmaking because she has got her uncle married. So she goes for various experiments with her friends Jane Fairfax, Harriet Smith, making their matches with Frank Churchill. Mr. Knightley is in love with Emma. Northanger Abbey, 1818, satire on Gothic fiction. Persuasion, 1818. Lady Susan, 1871. Thank you. We will discuss the more important writers in the upcoming videos. Thank you.